Hi everyone, my name is Avery Anderson and we're here in the beautiful James Museum for Western Art in downtown St. Pete with American Stage's producing artistic director, Helen R. Murray. Helen, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. I'm wonderful, actually.
Wonderful, actually.
I am wonderful,
I feel like that's a rom-com from the 90s.
I know.
Wonderful, actually.
Is it really?
No, it's
But
not.
it could be, 100%.
So let's talk a little bit about the Lift Every Voice New Play Festival. First off, why are we here this weekend? Why are we doing a new play festival?
So I talked a little bit about this actually when we kicked off the festival, and I've talked about it before, is that I have such a passion for sharing voices that are very different from my own. And so that means welcoming folks from not just all over the country, but from many different backgrounds to be able to bring artistic life to their own form of storytelling. And so we're here to celebrate those playwrights this week, and it has been a thoroughly joyful week. Just the artists and the actors and the technicians and all of our staff, including you guys. It really has had this very vibrant festival feel, which has been really exciting. And watching the plays come to life and how much work is coming out of those rehearsal rooms that is discovery. All of it's just been super exciting to be able to bring these stories forward and really celebrate the bards of our day.
It's very cool. And talk to me a little bit. What does new play development mean, right? Because I think to a non-theater person, it can kind of be mysterious. So, like, what actually are we doing here?
Sure. So we, all of the folks in our Lev Festival have either gone through our rigorous reading process. We did have one that was formally just selected to be our kickoff play, Pueblo Revolt. All of the pieces went through multiple reading cycles with different readers who read either snippets of the script or if they moved on to full-length versions of the script, and then they were voted on in many different capacities, and then a final selection committee came together to try to put together from our finalists a really thoughtful and diverse group of writers so that we could feel like we were really giving our audiences a wide array of not just backgrounds, but also how we tell plays. And then once we had that together, we put together our big company of actors. So kudos to our incredible staff for their amazing casting efforts. But we put together a huge company of artists to be able to cast all of the shows. And so that is 5 shows, 6, including our one little pop-up show and our write-on program from our teen writers. So it was a lot of actors, a lot of stage managers, a lot of effort from our amazing marketing department to make sure all of our audiences knew where to go and what showing they were at. And then we went into the rehearsal room for the week. Now, most directors also had off time that we talked with our playwrights so that we could really understand if there was any work that they really needed to be done at that time that they were working on during the week. Almost every play underwent changes during the week. We've got new pages for cast, cuts, additions, things like that. As you discover in the room when you're going through any rehearsal process, you discover what works, what still needs work, what discoveries are made that need to shift or change around the play. And so I think every playwright made a lot of strides this week, and there were a lot of aha moments, which is really exciting. And for us, what we're doing is we're helping the play on the next leg of its journey. The hope, of course, always is that something like this will get them closer and closer to a rehearsal-ready draft so they could go and get that world premiere for their play. And so that's what we've been doing all week.
And this is a lot of work on a lot of fronts, as you said. And I love what you said, that this weekend is about showcasing and uplifting voices that are not your own or our own. So why do you think it is important to be doing that in this time that we live in now?
We were just talking a lot in the post-show talk back of the last show we just saw about permission and about how we live in a lot more fear when we don't feel like we have permission to truly be who we are. And so I like to think that if we are bringing forward this many different kinds of voices, telling different stories in many different capacities, and celebrating BIPOC artists, celebrating BIPOC stories and queer stories and stories in other languages and of all of the beautiful richness of our humanity, if we're really doing that, if we're bringing all of those stories forward, it makes us kinder to one another, and it makes us understand one another a little bit better. And so even if per se it doesn't elicit kindness, the second you understand your fellow human a little bit more, it's a lot harder to be mean to them out in the world. And so hopefully people will walk out of here with greater understanding of one another. Yeah.
I really appreciate that answer. I would love to know, because a lot of the conversations around new play development is like, oh, what works, what doesn't work. So in your opinion, from Helen R. Murray, what makes a good play?
That's such a hard question. Oh my gosh.
As Erica Sutherland says, we can speak in drafts and workshop it a little bit.
So I think the reason that's so hard to answer is because, and this is so unfair, but you know it when you see it. Because, and I think audience members know it when they see it, right? You can't tell them, audiences rarely can say, I know exactly what I want, but they always know how to say, I know exactly what I like. And so what is the thing that sparks? And for me, plays that have a moment of wonder, something that feels magical beyond the life we regularly walk in every day, those to me are the ones that really sing. And that's really what I look for in plays, is what makes us, I don't know. When my daughter was really young, she saw a play that I had produced, and she said, Mom, this play makes me feel happy, sad. I told that to the playwright afterward. I was like, my daughter says your play makes her happy, sad. And he said, that might be my favorite critique I've ever gotten on any play I've ever had. And I think it's that thing that it makes you ache inside, because you want to know more. You want to get more of the story. You don't want it to end. Those are the things I look for in a play. If we reach those moments of wonder, if we get happy, sad, if we elicit in you a real human connection, then I think it's a great play.
I'm going to ask you one more tough question before we shift to your specific play.
I'm ready.
So there was about 200 submissions for this festival, and we are only reading 6.
Yeah.
So what do you say to the 194 playwrights that did not get their play selected?
That is a really hard question. I'll say sort of what we said to them when we let them know that they weren't moving on, which is so much that we thank them for telling their story, that we thank them for writing. It's an act of bravery to write your story, even if it's not your story, to write a story. And that we hope they keep writing, and we hope that they submit again. There's so much that goes into new play selection, and especially when you get toward the end of that selection, it's also about what is the mesh, what is the fit. And so just because your play didn't end up here doesn't mean it's not going to end up somewhere wonderful. So keep writing, writers.
Keep writing, writers. All right, I want to talk about the Figs. That's the piece you've been directing.
Yes.
So just give me brief synopsis, and as succinctly as you can, about what the Figs is about.
Again, the Figs is actually a story about stories, really. It is supposedly about a king who is addicted to figs. That really is, it's an addiction. And to the point that he has taken over other lands, murdered people, obliterated the world around him in order to feed this craving. And it's also about the journey of June, who's a fig farmer, and journey to self. And it is also a love story. I love a love story. You know this about me. and there is a very true and beautiful love story in the midst of it. And all of it's caught up in sort of what has been born out of one person's manic need to serve themselves. But what we find out of that manic need to serve self is that many other people around that are serving each other. It's a beautiful story.
So you're sitting at your computer probably, and you read the Figs for the first time. What was the reaction? What were the thoughts?
It was the first monologue in the play. He says, I'm all out of mirrors. So if you've come for a mirror, then you should go somewhere else. The idea that we come to be reflected. I don't know if I agree with it or not, that we come to the theater to be reflected, but or to find our truth in the play. He says in that first monologue, the only truth you will find here is the truth that you take away for yourself. But I loved the challenge of that moment. I also love a direct address. Like, it got me really quickly, and it got me because the play felt homespun. It felt like something that could be told around a campfire, as well as with all the bells and whistles of the theater. And it was really funny. I love a funny play, and so it was love story and funny. And I heard music, I heard laughter in the play. Like, it got me really quickly when I first read it. So.
And now you've taken it and you've directed it in a stage reading, which is not a full production, obviously, but just little bits. And how has that journey continued or shifted, or what are some new thoughts that have come up?
I think it's just enriched because I think I love the play more. I think that's how it normally works for me is I love a play upon read, and when I begin to work on it, I love a play more. Because you start to hear the words over and over again, and they ring and they ping around your ear like earworm, like a song that we really love, right? That we can't get. Sometimes those songs stay for forever, but these really, it's in my head. It's bouncing around in my head now, and I think the more I worked on it with this wonderful ensemble, and having Doug there right next to me while I worked on it, to be able to talk and ask the questions directly to him about the piece, it's just honed it for me, and it's made me see it even more clearly in my head of what it could be. And so yeah, I think it's just made it richer. Yeah.
Will you talk about Doug a little bit, because he submitted, but also
I know.
Doug.
It was such a relief to read his play and find out he was a good playwright. No, but seriously, when you know somebody, so Doug, yes, I gave him his first job in the theater forever and ever ago, but it's not like we've known each other, we've been connected, by social media, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here and there seeing each other, but knowing sort of that I kicked off what became, what he is now, which I don't have as much to do with. I can say, I helped him on the way. And then to reconnect over something beautiful that he's written has really been a joy. And he's just such a good guy. He's an easy person to be around. And he's so open to challenging questions about his work. And it was a very easy and natural writer-director relationship the second we started talking. And I had never worked with him in that capacity. I hired him as a production assistant I think he was 18 when I first hired him. So it was obviously a very different dynamic than we had first been introduced to each other. But to find that ease with him, that conversation that almost like, it was like, yes, we once knew each other, and it was so natural to just pick up into it. But now, and there was no hiccup into, now we're working in this different capacity. So yeah, it was joyful the whole time, really joyful.
All right, 2 more questions, but real quickly, this is one of the 2. So American Stage's tagline, powerful stories boldly told.
Yeah.
Is The Figs a powerful story boldly told?
I really believe so. It elicited such a strong conversation in the post-show talkback, and I love that. It means people immediately had a lot of thoughts and ideas about it, and it elicited in people that wanting to talk more. I was like, guys, we have to finish this talkback. But the fact that they just had more and more to say, it was doing its job. And I watch an audience when I watch something that I've worked on, and watching that audience lean in and really engage and be affected by it, yeah.
And lastly, it is really a fresh fairy tale. So you have swans and talking fish and bears and the devil. And how in the world would you even bring that to the stage if it were to become a full production one day?
Sure. Well, that's my happy place that I live in as a director. I love it. I love an animal that talks. I love a puppet. I love music on stage played by the actors. I love it, and that's not in a musical theater realm, but rather in a way in which we sing, like a mom singing a lullaby to a child. To me, bringing that to the stage is such a different way of sharing music. So The Figs does hit my sweet spots. It's why I wanted to direct it for the festival, because I knew, this is the kind of theater I enjoy making the most. So how would I tell it? Well, there's many, many different ways I could, and that's the glory of if you move forward with pieces like this, because then you get to have designers and actors and a full process around how do you make it. But yeah, I could see it in my head. I will say that. As I worked out, I'm like, I can see what this whole thing would look like, 100%.
Well, I will just stop it there because I think opening that can of worms would be far too much for this conversation. So thank you so much, Helen, for taking time out and chatting, and just thank you for supporting new play development.
Oh, you bet. Thank you, Avery.